Hi there. Just gonna check on the video that it's working. Okay, I had a few technical snags before and it didn't start when it made the sound. I actually took a picture of myself and sat here talking to the camera. So I thought maybe another string changing video would be fun to do today. Where I can do simple things and talk about things that are maybe a little more profound. So I'm a dreamer, and I have a lot of dreams every night. Almost every time I remember them. Sometimes I don't remember everything fully. Usually I do. You might notice a little dog head poking up around the side of the table here. This is Shadow. We just got him. It's a week today, or a week tomorrow. Anyways, so when I have these really vivid dreams, I try to write them down, or I dictate them into my phone so that I don't forget them. And I try to do that as soon as possible in the morning. So with this particular one, I didn't remember it until, well into the late morning. But what it was I went to sleep the night before, meditating on the words of a friend of mine who was talking about finding your peace, whether it be a place, people, an activity. His was in a lovely river on his property, or by a lovely river on his property. Midwinter Ontario, not many people are going to want to go in a river right now. So he was talking about that being his place of peace, where he can come there and listen to the birds, look at the other animal tracks, and just enjoy the time there in what's otherwise quiet. I could have grabbed better wire cutters for this. So as I was falling asleep, I had that on my mind, and I guess the dream that kind of happened around about maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, because I sometimes don't get to sleep until 3 or 4, was trying to find my way into a Christmas party. And I knew my honey was in there waiting for me, and I had to find my way in. Building I'd never been to before, driving a car that I don't own. Oh man, this one is being a real picky one. But I would recognize it if I was to see it in real life. So, in the dream, I got out of my car and walked up to the building and, made my way to where you enter. I'm officially giving up on that story. And, kind of made my way to the building. But as I was making my way to the building, I kept getting these weird little challenge things that I'd have to overcome. Small things like, when you're in the grocery store and you want to get past somebody and then they decide to park their cart in the middle of the aisle and walk away from it. Little things like that. Things that really shouldn't bother us, but they do. Remember when we were only allowed to walk in one direction in a grocery store? Yeah, good times, eh? Stuff like that. And so as I was getting closer to the building, little things like this started happening more and more. And what I found was that I was starting to sort of be required to act with some sort of violence in some of these situations. And I'm not a violent guy. I've never hit anyone before. I've been hit, but I've never hit anyone before. But the situation, or situations in the dream, kept getting to the point where some sort of act of violence was needed for me. And that kept getting worse and worse as I was getting closer to the building. And I don't even remember how it all resolved, but eventually I made it into the building. Now I will bring this back around to the idea of finding your peace. But I woke up from that dream, or came out of it, whatever you want to call it. And I found myself back in the situation again. And I've never had this happen before. I've heard of people that say they can go back to a dream to make it resolve differently. And I'm like, huh, that's cool. I've never been able to do that before. I've wanted to. I've wanted, there's a lot of dreams that were pretty cool. I wanted to go back and re-experience it or something like that. This is a great product called Wood Food. It's great for conditioning your fingerboards. Last time I did this in a video, I think I used black patchouli, but I'm all out of black patchouli. So just a little rub on your thumb and rub it into the wood. This guitar is wonderful. This is a 1992 Ovation Celebrity Deluxe that I've done some modifications to. One of the mods is this, and I hope this shows up well because I'm shooting in cinematic mode. This is a Roland GK2A hex pickup. So what it is it's a pickup with 6 different outputs that lets me send it to my GR55 guitar synth and trigger the synthesizer sounds with my guitar. Now that's not common for acoustic guitars. There are electroacoustic guitars that have that built in, but that was one of the first things that I wanted to do to this guitar because I had a GR33 at the time, much older synth, and I used it with that. And you might think, well, if you're using an acoustic guitar with bronze strings, it's not going to trigger. And I'm like, yeah, well, what I did, I don't know if I should have maybe mentioned that. I used strings 1 and 2, which are regular, whether you're acoustic or electric, but I used a wound 3rd string from an electric set, which was nickel. So the low strings won't trigger the synth, but the high strings will. So I have a separate profile set up in my GR55 for this, so I can put on like light string pads or something like that, neat airy sounds that just can kind of blend in and complement other things with. Not the kind of thing you use all the time, but it's kind of cool when you do want to use it, and it's there, and you can use it, and it's like, yep, I'm going to do that. That's cool. Yeah, so that's pretty cool mod. Another one that I did was I put in a K&K Pure Classic. It's like a 3 transducer microphone system underneath the thing here. Now, Pure Classic has no preamp, so you need to run it with an outboard preamp. But I'm not going to take it apart and show you. I could in another thing. If you want to see it, I can just leave a note in the comments or something and I'll do that. But so I got access to the guitar through the back here, because on an Ovation you don't have the sound holes in the front really. And I used a little tiny Dremel router bit, and I routed out across the main brace that goes here, just 3 little tiny slots. So what it does is it puts each of the sensors between, like, one between 5 and 6, one between 4 and 3, and one between 2 and 1. And I have 2 analog outputs and 1 what we will call digital output. So what I do is I run the one output into this, right, which can trigger the synth, and then the other one goes out. And it's funny, using this live, I've had people say, like, what did you do to that guitar to get that sound? Because the KK Pure Classic is an amazing pickup. It's meant for the purists in classical who don't want to have any electronic interference in their sound, but still want to be able to play that certain classical guitar in an amplified situation. And Ovations are great plugged in. I do not like the sound of them unplugged. Not many people do, but they have a certain characteristic. And that certain characteristic is what led me to want to try these strings, because I have some projects coming up that I want to use them for. Now what these are, D'Addario silver plated wound EJ83L Gypsy Jazz guitar. I don't know if you can see that well. They're silver plated and copper wound. It says, on a high carbon steel core to the original specifications used in the preamplification area by John D'Addario Sr. to satisfy luthier Marco Macaferri. Now, if you know the name Macaferri, you'll know that his name is associated with a lot of the great early gypsy jazz players, or manouche players, whatever you want to call it, Django Reinhardt, fellas like that. they say the strings deliver the ideal percussive and projecting tone for gypsy jazz guitars. Now, those gypsy jazz guitars are part of the sound of them. You'll know if you think about Django and them. Is almost very nasally. Now that was partly the recording technology at the time, but even if you hear contemporary people playing them, those guitars don't have a lot of like warm body resonance. They project, and it's like in your vocal range, right? So even with the modern recording equipment, amplification equipment, they still kind of sound the same. Black cold coffee, nothing like it on a cold day. So because Ovations kind of sound like that at the best of time, nasally and weird, I thought, hey, why don't I try these gypsy jazz strings on my Ovation and actually do some of the work of some of these songs that I've written with this guitar and see if I can create a reasonable facsimile of that tone with modern non-gypsy jazz stuff. So these are weird. Oh man, these are weird strings. You can see, hopefully, see against the body of the guitar that they are totally silver, right? So as I'm putting these on, I'm going to get back to the dream. Remember that? Started talking about a dream. So in the second half of the dream, I guess I'll call it a mulligan. I don't golf, but I know what the term mulligan means. It's when you're given a chance to do something over. So in the dream, yes, the doggy doesn't like the strings going through the bridge sound. In the dream, I got a chance to go over my reactions that at first were bringing out acts of violence-ish in me. So I'm walking up to the building. The first little thing happens. I don't even remember what they were. What they were is probably insignificant at this point. Green. Ugh. But I approached the building with ease and found my honey in the building, and I guess the party went on as normal, but there was no frustration, there was no inner cynical monologue. So it was like given the opportunity to do it over, I did things in a different way, and they ended up being much more smooth for me. And I think, well, I know, a lot of us have become really cynical over the last couple of years, and I will be the first to admit that I have as well. And not only is it just people, you know, on the right of the political spectrum screaming about people on the left and the trust the science people versus the trust the immunity thing. Not that. Politically, otherwise, you know, all shots and stuff like that aside, politically, geopolitically, you know, the war machine, you see all this stuff going on. A lot of people have become very cynical, very distrusting. And I think that was my first reaction in the dream. But when I had the do-over in the dream and I acted the way I would normally act and not as the cynical self, everything went smoothly. So me finding my peace then was not going to the party, because I don't like going to parties, but was finding a peace in a situation where I didn't let some sort of conditioning be the filter that I interpreted everything through. I wasn't anticipating stupid people doing stupid things, and it didn't happen. Kind of cool, huh? Yeah, so that was the extent of the dream. But I think the cool thing about that to share is that we all kind of don't get the chance for these do-overs in our normal day-to-day life. So when you are finding yourself in some kind of situation that's, you know, making you upset or making you act in a way that doesn't feel like the way you want to act in that situation, kind of stop and think about why. Why am I feeling this way? Is it something external impacting on me? Is it like physically causing me discomfort or anything? You see that little nose? That's shadow. Hey, buddy. Is it something acting upon me? Or is it just a minor inconvenience that I would rather not have at this point? And I think if we think back to most of the things that piss you off during the day, everybody's seen those memes, about, I don't want to be adulting anymore, or, I'm on a serious kick of, WTF today, I'm WTF overload and all this kind of stuff. We've all seen people post those memes, and we've all felt those things. There's no point saying, oh no, I've never been upset with anyone, because you'd be lying. But yeah, so finding your peace, it sounds very weird. Some people might say, oh, you're just being a weirdo talking about meditation and finding your peace and interpreting your dreams. And I think there's more people in the world that believe dreams mean something than there are people that will tell you your dreams are just some kind of diarrhea from your subconscious trying to clear your brain out. And sometimes it might be. I think our brains need those kind of breaks. But I am not one of those people that takes dreams lightly. I think it's one of the few times that our mind is actually honest with itself. Unabashed, filters are off, and sometimes I don't know if your brain doesn't have words. And that, I know that doesn't make sense to say that at first, but I think the more logical way for our subconscious to communicate with us is through symbols, symbology. Like if there was someplace really important to you or significant to you as a child, somebody can go about describing it and describing it and describing it, and you might not really catch what they were talking about. But if you just remembered the smell from it, then you'd be right back there. That's what I mean about your brain speaking to you in symbols. It doesn't need to come out and use vocabulary and words. It can do those things, and I think our day-to-day brains lose track of that fact. An interesting one for me is onion rings. I think one of the first times I ever had like really good onion rings, I don't know how old I was at Canada's Wonderland when it first opened. And I was obsessed with onion rings after that as a kid. And now whenever I smell onion rings, I'm right back there. I can see the stand. I don't know who was there, but I can see the little, like the kiosk thing where I bought them. And yeah, that was it was something else. So yeah. Anyways, the inner peace. I think part of it is not expecting the worst all the time. And you can find inner peace driving in your car. I made a video about this, or an audio about this as a meditation a year ago. And I have a friend who's a clinical psychologist, and she said that she shared that video to several of her patients, and they were in tears by the end of it. These are people who had lived through atrocities of war, who had everything taken from them. And they were the type of folks that are appealing for medically assisted suicide for depression. And I was so taken aback, it freaked me out. It was amazing when she said that she shared that with her patients, because I mean that's a pretty big thing, for a licensed clinical psychologist to find something that I did worthy of sharing. So that's called redefining normal, what you can do, if you want to check back on that one. But I think for now, I'm going to see if I can get this beast in tune. sound different. I'm going to cut these off later. No. Get out of my way. Well, they're stretchy. These are a much lighter gauge of strings than I'm used to using on here. So I just may have to do something about my playing action here. So let's see. I think it sounds pretty cool. It doesn't sound... These are so flexible. These feel so weird to have on this guitar. I used to beat the living bejesus out of this guitar. This was the guitar that I was playing at the time exclusively when I was getting into fingerstyle guitar, and the whole thing back in the time was everybody had to do that and pretend that it was really awesome. And then everybody started doing the same thing, and it's like, I don't want to be part of that anymore. So I changed, and I started to write songs based on the poetry that I write, and doing them as like the singer-songwriter thing in a fingerstyle way. I prefer fingerstyle still to other playing. Just my thing. But anyways, I'll post the song a little bit later, maybe next week. Once these strings have had a chance to stretch out. But yes, I will conclude this video here. I would encourage you, check out that redefining normal video of mine. It may work for you, it may not. You may think it sounds like a load of poop, but that's okay. That's okay with me. Tell me it sounds like a load of poop in the comments. Let's engage in something. Yes, so thank you for watching. I hope you find your inner peace somehow, somewhere, someday.